or relinquish part of my freedom to you.
There's a contract in every cigarette. When you light up, you sign up. Don't let tobacco control you.
Alright, hopefully I'm streaming, and I apologize for accidentally broadcasting some of that ad. I forgot to mute Twitch fast enough. Hopefully everything looks alright. Welcome to Factorio. I figure, somebody gave me a good idea last night. I think it was Open Dork. To kind of show off what the game looks like in the mid to late game, and then jump back toward the beginning to show kind of what it looks like in the very beginning. So, as you can see, trains, pre-signals, the trains are automated. So Factorio is such a fun game. It's one of my favorites, kind of all time. I've been playing this thing for about 2 years now, before it was officially early access. The goal of the game is, you're a dude. Let me get out. Let me select the right window. Get out of the train. You're a dude. You are landed on a planet. They haven't exactly decided what the story is, but essentially you're on a planet by yourself. You have to build up a factory, and then launch a rocket into space and basically prep the planet for colonization. You mostly do this by polluting the hell out of the planet, extracting all of its resources, and killing a lot of the aliens that are native to the planet. But it's a lot of fun along the way. Alright, so one of the cool things you get to do in the later game is set up these massive train networks, because you need a ton of resources to produce a lot of the things in the late game. And the best way to get them is by, well, expanding outward. You can kind of see on the map here, I have my main factory up here. It's pretty massive. And then I have these little outposts here. This is where I was earlier, to bring resources. The main ones are copper, iron, coal, and oil. So, fairly simple. Doesn't get as crazy as... Ooh, not ECEC, just donated $36. Thank you very much. That's Jeremy Greer donating $36. I really appreciate that. Oh, and just before I get too into Factorio, the real purpose for the stream is to go to the Transactive Gender Center of Portland, Oregon. It's a fantastic charity. They do a lot of great work. I believe Gary said they operate one of the only suicide prevention hotlines for trans kids in the state, so that's an excellent cause. I highly encourage you to donate to it whenever you can. Jeremy's blood money is in. The thing is done. Yeah, so the basic loop of Factorio is, you build mines, they extract resources, you pipe the resources over to somewhere to get refined. In this case, it's these smelteries. The smelteries are full right now because my factory isn't actually producing all that much right now. But the idea is you take all these raw resources, you combine them together into factories that produce ever more advanced products. So like this chain brings in iron ore that's been smelted, turns it into gears, which then gets piped up here to these factories that combine gears and copper plates into red science. And science is what you use to research. There's this massive tech tree. Right now I'm researching to improve these little things I have called logistics robots. I'm going to put some... So I have these logistics slots that basically say, this stuff in my inventory, take it away. And this robotic network I built up will just... So one set of robots is taking them away, but I have a standing order to always keep me stocked with 300 iron plates. So these other robots are coming to put it back in. So like, in the late game, almost everything is automated. Production's automated, resource collection's automated, and you even have these little guys to give you whatever you need. You can also automate building and construction. So let's say I want to build a defense up here, because this game does have enemies in it. I set up a blueprint with a basic laser defense. Yeah, Jeremy did a great job, guys. That was absolutely fantastic stream. I can't wait for Salt and Sanctuary to come out on PC. So yeah, what you saw here is that my construction robots just plop down a bunch of laser turrets and stone walls. As long as there's an item in the inventory, construction robots can build it, they can repair things. And this game gets crazy with production chains. Right now I have like a massive oil processing industry. That basically you feed in oil into these refineries, which then splits it into heavy oil, light oil, petroleum gas. It's crazy. Like, if I were to try to sit down and show you guys this factory, I'd be sitting here explaining things for all goddamn afternoon. So let's start a new game. Yes. So Factorio is at its heart a sandbox game. The campaign mode is more of a tutorial than anything else. It's a good tutorial, but it's still just a tutorial. So you have a ton of options for world gen. We're going to leave most of these the same, except we're going to set richness to very good for most of these resources. Normally resources run out every so often, but just to sort of keep the stream interesting, I'm going to make it so we don't have to run around and constantly refill our raw resources. Alright, so this is the game. You're by yourself in the woods on an unspoiled alien planet. So the first thing you want to do is make some tools. And like every survival game on the planet, punch some trees. Exciting, I know. Alright, so we got a couple trees. The next thing we want to do is... So the trees we can burn to make fuel. We can build them into boxes for storage. But we start off the game with two items. Burner mining drill that burns fossil fuels for power. And then a stone furnace, which smelts ores and processes... It does a couple different things, but mostly it smelts ores and also burns fossil fuel. So we're going to set that up here. There's our smeltery. And there's our mining drill. Put our logs in there. Alright, so it's going to happily crank away. It's going to drill out the iron. And you can see... I don't know why I just pointed to my screen. But you can see the little arrow here. That shows where the output is for this machine. So it's outputting the iron into this furnace. And the furnace is processing it at this rate. You can see it's consuming fuel. So it's not a permanent solution. We're going to need to clear out some space and come up with a more permanent fuel source for it. So for the early game, the richest fuel source is coal. And there's not very much here, which could be a problem. There's a little tiny black spot there of coal, which will be enough for now. But we're going to want to expand that very quickly. Let's see. I can barely even see it. So one of the things that makes Factorio so just absolutely amazing to me is that it starts off the game like a lot of other survival games. You're by yourself, you're in the woods, and you're punching trees. But it very rapidly evolves away from you physically gathering resources to you just running that massive factory that you just saw in my at the beginning of the stream. Alright. So, the next thing we want to do is we want to automate coal production. That way I don't have to sit here and chunk away at it. To do that, I need to build a burner mining drill. One of the cool things about crafting in Factorio is that it doesn't require you to craft every intermediary step. You just say, I want the burner drill, and as long as you have the raw resources, you can see them down at the bottom of the pop-up, says total raw. As long as I have 5 stone and 9 smelted iron plates, it'll produce one for me. So, I need to get some stone. But since stone is something that I need a lot of, and I don't want to sit here and mine over and over again, the first one that we build is going to be for stone. And we're going to set that up with a box. Yeah, so down in the corner, it just processed all of the different raw resources. Let's put the coal in there. And so then every time this cycles, it'll give me an extra stone. Let's try to speed this up a little bit. Alright. So I can build the furnace. And the burner. And if you have a completed... So the furnace is... It's an intermediary step, but it's also a finished product, depending on how you use it, so it will use anything in your inventory that meets the crafting requirements to finish processing it. So coal's a lot more energy rich than wood, and wood's kind of laborious to harvest. Your only option at this point in the game is to actually sit over there and hold down the right mouse button. Luckily, you don't need very much of it, so I'm trying not to use any more than I need to. Yeah, this is my favorite game, but it's probably also one of the least entertaining games that we've had on the stream this weekend. Alright, so once copper's up once iron's up and running, the next thing I want to start working on is copper. Copper is extremely important for electronics, obviously. You don't need as much of it at this point in the game, but you'll need a lot of it by the end of the game. Yeah, toward the end of the game, you're producing tanks, flamethrowers, rocket launchers, power armor, And then like a lot of efficiency, like there's different modules you can produce that change the way factories work. There's all kinds of logistics systems, conveyor belts. It gets crazy toward the end. Hopefully we can get to something kind of interesting by the end of the session. And if things start to kind of drag and plateau here in Factorio, I have another game, Subnautica. That is it's another sort of open-world single-player survival game, but it takes place under the ocean, and it is absolutely terrifying. If you're afraid of the dark and a little bit claustrophobic, it is 100% the game that will, well, scare the pants off you. Yeah, so the very, very beginning of the game is a lot of this. It's a lot of running between the different stations, and minding them, keeping them fueled. All right. Alright, since we got such a small patch, we might be able to fit 2 mining... Yeah, we can fit 2 drills on it instead of just 1. Let's see if I can... Yeah, there. I can angle them here, that way they both output into 1 box. Oh, Z Chocobo donated $3 to make it an even 710. That's awesome. Yeah, so we're at $710 for Transactive, the Gender Youth Center in Portland, Oregon. Enthralling. Okay, so ultimately our next step, we're going to want to get down here. This is another deposit of coal. Yeah, because the next thing we want to do is we want to start up an actual coal power plant. Because this is nice. Like, this is giving us what we need for right this moment. But the thing about Factorio is you always want to be kind of geometrically advancing the rate at which you produce. So like we can linearly, like I can keep getting resources, getting more individual miners, and slowly building up capacity. But what we want to do is we want the rate of acceleration to be increasing, as well as just the level of resources. So we're going to build a steam engine. We need an offshore pump that takes some circuits, some pipes, and some gear wheels, which are just made with iron and copper, a steam engine, and some boilers. So the first thing we're going to do, this is a nice coal seam. We're going to set it up. We're going to set up shop there, and we're going to try to build some conveyor belts. What we're going to want to do is we're going to want to basically belt the coal from down here in the seam all the way up to where we're going to build our steam plant. This is a pretty good spot. So this is the basic steam setup. It's a power plant. So you start off with an offshore pump to supply your factory or your power plant with water. You have these boilers to make sure that the water's hot enough to produce steam, and then the steam engines convert it to electricity and put it over your power network. So while we're up here, we're going to be crafting some electrical poles. Pop in here for some more coal. Alright, keep these guys fueled. And there's a couple tricks we can do to keep this stuff fueled, but at this point in the game, it's probably not worth it. So I'm just going to make sure they have an okay amount. Because we're going to be stopping by here pretty often for the next little bit, just to make sure that we have enough resources for our electric coal mine. Yeah, so you want to get away from using straight-up coal power for basically everything except for these furnaces and the steam reactors as soon as you can, because it's a very inefficient power source for resource extraction. Alright. Yeah, so we're going to build these electric inserters, 2 of them for our 2 boilers. We're going to make sure I know where I'm going. And we're going to build some transport belts. And some pipes, because we'll need those eventually. Yeah, so conveyor belts are pretty straightforward. This thing, the miner, the drill just inputs things wherever the arrow is, so it's belting them up here. Yeah, so We just need a little bit more iron, and then we can get the conveyor belt up to where we need it, and then we can start proper power production. Alright. Okay, we have enough resources to build an electric mining drill. This is what we were really working towards. Because it's faster, it extracts from a bigger area. Like, you'll notice the burner drills are only 4x4. Yeah, RJ Sebastian says the art style reminds me of the Jagged Alliance games. Yeah, I thought the same thing. It kind of reminds me of Command and Conquer. They have been improving the art for the past 2 years. There's still a bit of placeholder stuff in here, but they are sticking with this overall visual style. Yeah, so the early game is, yeah, it's a little bit dry, it's a little bit boring, but it kind of, one of the reasons I like the beginning of this game is that it kind of puts in perspective how awesome things get once everything really ramps up. So in order to get the coal power started, everything's wired up, everything's ready, but these things need power. So I'm going to put a little bit of coal in the burners and just kind of kickstart it. Yeah, so now as the ore's coming up from the miner, it's going to power this steam engine. And you see 2 bars here, the performance and the available performance. Available performance means that maximum this steam engine can do. And it's not very much, because we've only got 2 boilers here. And we've only got 1 steam engine. But this is our consumption. There's 800 watts being consumed. We can produce way more than 800 watts, so these 2 engines will be fine for now. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to replace this guy with an electric drill. We're going to wire it up. Okay. So now this should be supplied with coal indefinitely. I just took that coal. Yeah, so we got a patch of iron ore right here. That's going to be our next point of expansion. We're going to build an electric mining drill operation there to get a bigger smelter. That way we don't have to run back to these 2 drills, these 2 things up here to get all of our iron. So, I'm just going to pull these right up, because I don't think we're going to need this anymore. Let's let the stone run for a while. It's useful, but we don't need very much of it in the beginning of the game. Let's get this, because we've got a copper ore deposit down there as well. So in the beginning of the game, so you can see this sort of red, the red highlighted part of the map right here. This shows where all of my machines are polluting. There's a really cool concept in this game of, I'll pull these as well. One of the cool things about this game is that you aren't alone. There's native species on this planet, and mostly they'll leave you alone until your pollution starts to touch their bases. Essentially, when their homes get polluted, they'll seek out your base and try to destroy whatever's polluting it. So there's kind of a tower defense element of this game where you want to build up resources to fight them off, because you're just a guy. The entire point of this game is that, yeah, you can do everything yourself, but it's the least efficient way to do it. The easiest way is to build machines and defenses and factories to automate it all for you. And everything you can make and do in this game can eventually be automated with technology, including chopping down trees, killing aliens, and creating every single item in the game. Yeah, so what we're going to do is we're going to start up ore production. And I'll go ahead and bring some power over to it. We're going to start up ore production, and then we're going to start research down the tech tree. But we want to have a stable supply of iron and a decent supply of copper before we do that. Alright, so now we got power over here to run our drills. Let's see. Alright, and now these guys are happily picking iron away. I did not think ahead and don't have enough resources to make more inserters. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to manually insert iron into these machines and fill them up with coal. That way they'll produce a little bit of ore for me while we're waiting. Yeah, these things can insert or remove items from pretty much any object in the game. So what I'm going to eventually do is I'm going to have a set of inserters pulling off the conveyor belt into the smelteries, and then another set pulling them out of the smelteries and onto an assembly line. All right. Yeah, and the next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to actually want to divert the coal line over here to our iron smeltery and get that going. Okay. Yes, I can kind of hang out here and pick the iron up to speed up production. Alright. And luckily we've got copper right by the iron, so like this is actually a better spot to start than up north where we originally started. So the interesting thing about conveyor belts is we don't have to worry about this just yet, but if you notice, everything's always being placed on one side of the belt here, whereas with these two machines, they're always placing they're placing it on the side of the belt that it outputs to. So you have to think about, like, each belt has two sides, so in a way it's almost two conveyor belts in one. And once we get a little bit down the tech tree, there are cool tricks we can do to sort of make sure that the belt's balanced and that there's not a bias in the belt, where one side is getting overloaded and the belt isn't being used to its full capacity. So like you see right here, the left side's being overloaded. There will be ways to compensate for that later. So it's definitely a game if you like logistics and optimization, this is a game for you. I wouldn't recommend it for people that, you know, just want to play a fun survival game, because like you can play this like an open world survival game, like a Minecraft, only for so long. Essentially the rule is if you're doing it yourself, it's probably the wrong way to do it. Or it's probably too early in the game for you to do anything else, in this case. Alright. And we're just going to need a very basic copper operation up here. So as you can see, we don't have much that we can craft. We can do some pipes, a couple of inserters, boxes, some tools. These are repair packs, let you repair structures. But then there's this guy, the lab. It's probably one of the most important items in the game, and it's what most of your resources are going to go into basically up until right before the end of the game. The end goal is to build that rocket. That takes a lot of resources, but up until that point, you're pretty much dumping everything you have into different items that are used to generate research. Alright. Yeah, so to speed up iron production, we want more furnaces. And there's a big backlog for the, there's a big backup for the coal. So what we can do is, we can actually steal some of the line here, because it's going to be going for a while, and we're not consuming too much energy. And we're just going to divert our coal over this way. Because ultimately what we want to do is we want to have a huge chain of these smelteries building, or making iron bars for us. We're getting there. Okay, so we're producing a little bit above capacity. We're producing raw resources a little bit above our refining capacity. So I'm going to add a couple more here. They won't get too much, so I'm not going to fill them with too much coal. The ones at the top of the line are going to get way more of the iron, because they're going to be the first ones to grab it off of the production line. And you'll notice every so often I'm running back to the line to grab up the excess. That's because it's producing a little bit more than one inserter handle could handle into a box. Copper's a little bit easier because I'm only making one of it. Let's see. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to start setting up our longer-term iron production right here. And we're going to make it go up and down. One thing that's kind of tempting in the early game is to just place things wherever it seems to make the most sense at the moment. But one of the things is the factory, you need a lot of space. You need to be able to expand operations whenever you get a bottleneck. Like, you don't want to be producing something that requires 9 different intermediary ingredients and then discover that one of them doesn't produce fast enough, so you need to, rearrange the whole factory. That is a nightmare. Alright, so one of the tricks we can do to make sure... So what we want to do here is we want to merge coal and iron onto the same belt, but we don't want them intermixing because that makes it hard for our machines to tell exactly what they should be processing. Like, you might get a situation where there's a bunch of iron down here, and the coal doesn't show up until later. Like, I'll show you what I mean. So right now, we have an intersection. The coal is going to go into the belt and immediately get put onto this aisle. But if I put... And this is going to be where our iron processing is, by the way. So what you can see is, like, right here, these machines would have no trouble getting the coal. But down here, this guy wouldn't get any fuel. So what we're going to do is set up a little bypass. And we're going to tear all this out. It's useful. It was useful to allow us to keep producing while we set everything up, but we don't actually need it anymore. Of course, we're going to build a more efficient operation down there. One that doesn't require us to keep everything manually fueled. This is kind of the first step toward real automation that we'll be doing, which is fun. Alright. No controller support in this game, by the way. Alright, so to get it all on one side of the belt, we're just going to build a little loop here. There. Now everything should be good. We're going to take that out to make some extra room if we need to build something more advanced up there later. So I like to build smelteries in packs of 6. And I'll show you why in just a second. So kind of keeping with belt tricks. One thing you want to do is you want to make sure that everything's balanced, because if there's an imbalanced load where one side of the belt has more items than another, if you only have one item per belt, you get a situation where items can't really move as fast as they should. I guess if you think of belts as kind of like having bandwidth and throughput, you want your belts to have as much throughput as possible. That way you can push as much resources through them as possible. So, what I've done here is I've created... Each of these inserters will always put it on the far side of the belt. So I set up some opposing conveyor belts inserting into opposite sides of this master belt. That way they should theoretically be balanced. It's not perfect, but we don't actually have the technology to make it perfect just yet. Alright, so we've got a good amount of iron coming in now. So we'll set up our research station. Alright, so the tech tree here is absolutely huge. Oh yeah, this I've tried... Space Lion Bear says, seems like it would be tough on a controller. I've tried it with a Steam controller a couple of times, and it's just too finicky. It's kind of like playing an RTS with a controller. It can work, but I wouldn't recommend it. So the first thing we're going to research is automation. This allows us to build assembling machines, which are basic factories, and then these inserters called long-handled inserters that let us pick up stuff from a couple of spaces away. They're great. But they need 10 Science Pack 1s. And we can make these here out of copper and iron. So let's grab some copper, refuel this guy, and there, you can see down here we queued up 10 science packs. So what I'm going to do is plug them right in here. Alright, so you can see this is our production for total power. You can get this by clicking on any power distribution network sort of item. So click on the power line and I see this. This isn't quite what we want it to be yet. It's not bad, like we have enough power for everything we're doing, but as you can see, we're not using all of our burners here. We're not smelting as much as we could because we're not producing as much raw resources as we could. But because our power is so close to maximum, we don't want to risk brownouts, because then we could lose power to the whole base and it gets real nasty. So what I'm going to do is just build a couple of more power plants. And again, like looking at the pollution map, we're not polluting too much. It's just this little small area here. And generally aliens don't spawn in the initial area, at least not yet. They will start to spawn there eventually. So as long as our pollution is staying within our starting area, we don't have to worry too much about having to defend ourselves just yet. Alright, so we got our power plant ready. So there's actually an optimal ratio to the number of boilers to the number of power plants. And that is 14 boilers to 10 steam engines. We're probably not going to mess with that many just yet. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move these steam engines down a bit. Because we want to have some room to grow with the boilers. Because ultimately we will be producing a lot of power, and we'll need a lot of room to do it. So have some regular pipes here that basically pipe along the water they pumped, and then an underground pipe that allows us to walk back and forth over it, because objects in this game do have collision. Alright, let's wire these up. Okay, there we go. And since we have more power plants, we need more boilers, because the plants on the end of the line probably aren't getting too much steam. Okay. Alright, the water temperature is slowly rising. This should be enough for now. And let's see. Okay, and now we're back to where we want to be. We're producing a huge excess of power. The nice thing about the steam reactors are they don't run more than they need to. But we are running into a problem where they're using up their reserves of coal a little bit faster now. As obviously, more boilers means more production, means more resource consumption. Luckily, that won't be too much of a problem for much longer, because we're actually getting close to the research we need to help us do things like more advanced things with conveyor belts, specifically splitting them. In the meantime, though, there's sort of a little workaround. There, this guy will pull... Oh, there we go. Yeah, so the next thing we want to build is logistics, which allows us to build underground conveyor belts, fast inserters, and splitters to split our conveyor belts. But for now, we're just going to have that guy keep us in coal for the power. Because iron production is important, but this will all grind to a halt if we run out of electricity, obviously. Alright, so we can build a couple more drills now that we have more electricity getting produced. Let's dump our research in here. Yeah, so this is actually a really small iron ore deposit, so we're going to end up exploiting pretty much all of it really quickly. So we may end up wanting to get... we may end up having to get trains much earlier than I thought. Trains are really resource intensive, but they're really cool because they're trains. Alright, so originally I just threw these electric mining drills down kind of willy-nilly because didn't need to worry about it. But again, because this patch is so small, we do want to kind of think about getting the most for our resources. So like we don't want to put a mine and only have it get one resource, and we don't want to end up with resources not getting mined because of where our placement is. We can't get 100% coverage, but we can try to get as close to it as possible. So for now, let's arrange our drills like that. That way they're each covering a pretty big area of ore. It's actually... And even though we're merging it into a belt with coal later on, it's actually good to plan ahead and try to build a balanced belt at the beginning, because now that we have long-handled inserters, we can actually have one of these furnaces being fed by two different belts. So what we want to do eventually is build a second belt here for the coal. But we aren't actually producing enough raw resources for that to be a problem just yet. Okay. Let's dump some of that in there. Okay, so right now we're hitting a bottleneck with copper production. And that's because we have one drill supplying one little tiny inserter, or one little tiny burner. So we're going to clear out some space down here. And kind of build the same thing we did with our iron belt, but for, or iron smeltery, but for copper. And you can see with those two extra, oh. I got a cat. He is a Gary cat. He's my wife's cat, so he is a little bit more skittish about me picking him up. Oh, yeah, so Space Bear asked if the game punishes you from a time management perspective. Not at all. So right now, if my resources build up too much, the only thing I'm losing is opportunity cost. So like every minute that I spend so like this system, I can let it run forever and let resources keep piling up. It's not really an issue. The iron will eventually run out, but like this one drill that I've highlighted is going to mine 23,000 iron because of how we set up our world. So like, as it is, I'm going to have way more iron than I will ever know how to deal with at this point in the game if I just kind of let it run. That said, the problem with kind of letting things build up as is it's so I could be producing so much more. So the cat will be back, Grain of Salt. Grain of Salt. The cat will be back, Grain of Salt. That's a really good username. I just got the joke. Yeah, so like right now we're only producing a fixed amount of resources. Like with Factorio, the thing is, as long as you're standing still, it's okay, but you don't want to be stagnant. You want to always be increasing the amount at which you're progressing. Like geometric growth. Alright, so lost track of what I was doing for a second. But yeah, like one thing I actually like to do in the late game is I'll just spend hours, like 5, 6, 7 hours, just building railroads, going all over the place, exploring the area, building cool rail networks. Because this game actually shares a lot of DNA with, draws a lot of inspiration from, is a better way to put it, from Open Transport Tycoon Deluxe, one of my favorite games, and kind of the best train and logistics game on the market. I say on the market even though it's free and open source. It's a fantastic game. So yeah, I'll spend hours just building trains, and like I'm not necessarily progressing in my technology by building trains, but then I come back and I have a factory just stuck to the brim full of resources. So the only real risk to sitting on your factory and letting it produce is running out of storage. But you can't really lose resources like that. Aliens can destroy them, but you can set up good enough defenses that you never really have to worry about that. And in the late game, you even have robots that can... Oh, it's back. Robots that can make sure that everything that gets damaged gets repaired. Alright, I'm going to pick him up right this time. He only likes to be picked up a certain way by me. There we go. I have to support his back feet and hold his front feet like that. And he wants down. So. Whew, hope you caught the cat. My cat is somewhere, but hopefully he'll come by at some point. Okay, so what I'm trying to do is build these long chains of smelteries, because what I'm producing a good amount here, but like I want to extend this thing eventually to like I'm gonna have hundreds of smelteries by the time I reach the end game. Oh, my wife is dropping off a cat. Hi, buddy. Oh no. Ow. That didn't work out so well. My cat likes being picked up from the ground. Turns out he doesn't like getting picked up.
And transferred.
And transferred, yeah. I think he might have cut me a little bit, but that's okay. Okay, yeah. Scared him off. I should make people donate to let them see the cat. He'll be back pretty soon.
Pretty brilliant idea, though.
Yeah, I think he's scared of the headphones. He's not used to me wearing them. I'd point the camera to where they are right now, but actually, I'm streaming from a Russian dash cam I clamped to my computer monitor, so it's like, it's not the most stable of setups. A Russian-made dash cam, I should say. Yeah, Jeremy also sold me on Salt and Sanctuary, the stream that came on just before mine. Can't wait for that to come to PC. That looks fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to make a couple of more smelteries. And we're going to set up our copper production here. Ooh, we're going to drop off our science so we can get our splitters and our advanced logistics systems, which are going to be so much fun. So right now we're almost at the point where the game takes a pretty big tonal shift. Like, so far there's automation, but it's still very much a you go around, you do everything, you grab the resources, dump them in the lab bulba. That's a new name. Huh. They just call it laboratories. Okay. Alright, so we finished researching logistics. That's awesome. So now, I'll build some gun turret. I'm going to research some gun turrets next, just in case. I don't think we're going to see any aliens, but in case we do, I want to be able to drop a turret down very quickly. Okay, so we've almost got copper production online. So you can see down here, it's producing these chips and a bunch of intermediary steps that's taken way too damn long. We want to fix that. We want to automate that. And we're going to need to very soon, because the first bit of science we build is really easy. It's just a copper plate and a gear. You know, nothing challenging. But every single type of science you need to produce, and there's 4 ultimately, require just an exponentially greater amount of effort to get. The final type of science actually requires you to go out and raid alien bases, which is... Oh, my tools broke. Which is its own type of resource constraint. Alright. I'm going to build a couple of splitters. That way, instead of us having to manually pipe our... Well, this thing can stay. Instead of us having to build up a separate supply line for the copper, I can just split the iron ore and have it sent over there. Yes, they're loading up the smelteries, but they don't have anything to process. So, there's our first splitter. Yeah, so what this does is very simple. Just every other item that crosses the belt gets sent to a different side of the splitter. And the splitters can actually be used for really cool stuff later on to balance loads. And I'll show you that whenever I get to my outputs in just a minute. Alright, so we've got underground belts that basically let our belts overlap each other. That's super useful. Unfortunately, because conveyor belts are intermediary products, it's hard to keep them in stock in my hotbar. Bill Jacko says, "This game rules, yo." It does. It might sound like hyperbole, but this is the most fun I think I've had with a game in ages. This game was fun 2 years ago when the developers were putting it on kind of like a pre-early access, pre-Steam thing. It's fantastic now. And it's one of those rare early access games that just... It's been fun from the beginning. Like, every update refines the formula, it makes the games better, but they've always been fun, they've always been stable, they've always been just a delight to play. And that's a pretty rare thing, especially with games that, you know, share DNA with survival open world games. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to build our factory, quote unquote, our big factory. And I'm trying to pick an area that's nice and open. And I think the easiest way would be to build east-west. Actually, no, our power plants are there. The easiest way would be to build south. So we're going to back this up, collecting the resources along the way. And just so we're not wasting time, I'll be producing science, because it takes a good chunk of time while I'm doing this. So I'm building our factory a little bit out of the way, because we want to have, A, room to expand our smelteries, but also room to build a massive factory. Yeah, gotta pave the planet. Yes, that is on the agenda. Yeah, one of the things you can do is, in order to run faster, you can build essentially just concrete and asphalt everywhere under your entire factory. It's also thematically appropriate to land it on an unspoiled wilderness and basically turn it into a polluting parking lot. Yeah, Ygraph says he loves how this game is just production for the sake of production. Yeah, the rocket is... I'm always kind of surprised. It's like, oh yeah, I guess I have to build the rocket defense now. Most of my games, I don't build it. I built it the first couple of games just because it's the stated objective of the game. Build the rocket, and you get a game over screen and a score. But for me, the end game has always been trains. Once I get the resources to make infinite trains, I've reached the end game. Yeah, Grain of Salt is right. By the time I build the factory, I don't want to abandon it. Yeah. Although that is literally what I'll do with my factories. I usually play a game for about a game of Factorio for about 40 hours, and then I'll just move on. I'll give myself a couple of months break, and then, like I'm doing now, I'll dive right back in. Alright, so as you can see, I'm making conveyor belts, but they're slow as hell. And if I want to build a big operation, I'm going to need to automate that. And right now, like, we're not making any progress on our research because I have to keep running back here to stock up the research machine. So we're going to have to automate that as well. I'll grab that. And start moving our operations south. Oh, cool. I'm having trouble reading the color of his name. Bill Jacko says there's an actual rocket silo now, not just a big box that says rocket defense on it. Yeah, last time I played this game, it was just, yeah, a square that just said the words rocket defense, then you got the game over screen. Anticlimactic is not a strong enough word for it. Okay, so. Here it is. We're going to plop down our lab here. This is going to be the end goal, the end destination for most of our... okay, so each lab name is randomly generated. This is Lab Panu Satella. I wonder if that's a backer name. Anyway, the lab here is going to be the end goal for most of the stuff that we build in this game, at least for this stream. There's later stuff that's very resource intensive, like modules to change how productive... to change kind of the outputs of your factories, change how much power they require, and power armor is super resource intensive, but we probably won't get into that in this stream. Alright, so what I like to do in these games is I like to build a central bus, where the common resource, and as you can see I'm not producing a ton right now, but a central bus where the common resources are just available, and then I'll build these little branches that have factories coming off of them. So the first thing I want to do is build a factory to automate red science, because it's very inefficient for me to sit here and keep making it. So for red science I need a copper plate, which we have right here, and an iron gear wheel, which I'll make from iron ore, or iron plates. So we got our factory. This little thing just basically acts like the crafting that you see here, but only for one item. So we're going to have it load up on iron. I'm going to give it 2 inserters just so it'll do it a little bit faster. And it's going to make gears. And there we go. Our factory is now making gears. Whoops. Okay, next thing we're going to research is steel. It's a very important resource. Also, you notice my conveyor belts, there's simpler, more efficient ways I can do this, but I just love... I love conveyor belts crossing over each other and intersecting. I love tangled messes of factories, so... aesthetics are easily as important to me as usefulness. Oh, that's what I wanted to build. So we're going to build some long-handled inserters, because the science that we're making has 2 ingredients. And we might want to use these gears for something else. We might want to expand our production line later. So what we're going to do is we're going to have 2 sets of inserters. This one will grab the copper, And then the one I'm hopefully... in this red one that I'm building, here, we'll grab the gears. Alright, we set it to Science Pack 1. Just because I'm a masochist for having to improve this thing later, I'm going to take the conveyor belt and route it back through where it came from. Okay. Alright, so now we've happily automated red science. So now that I don't actually have to run these things to and from the research station, I can build a couple of more. That way I can have multiple ones going concurrently. Which means I'll also need multiple factories down here producing the science. And why... oh no, it's running. Yeah, these things are really freaking slow. Pretty soon we're going to research an upgrade that'll give us faster factories. Yeah, Bill Jacko says there are future plans of a space platform construction post-final release. Yeah, they were originally planning on putting that in the final version, but they decided they couldn't figure out how to make it fun in the amount of time that they had, so... figured, why not just focus on the base game? And, yeah, extra stuff will be cool, but this is already one of the best games I've ever played, so... yeah, the amount of support it's going to get post-release is something I'm really excited about. I don't know if this is still the case, but as of a couple of days ago, this was had been sitting on the #1 user-reviewed game on Steam for basically since it came out. I think #2 is probably Stardew Valley. And this is as anti-Stardew Valley as you can get. Like, I love Stardew Valley. It's a great game. It's super fun. But I've been bouncing between that and this most evenings, and it couldn't be more night and day. Like, go to a place where it's all about the people, escaping away from the monotony of Joja Corp in Stardew Valley. You build a farm, you get back to nature, you learn about your neighbors. Let's see, we're going to research stone walls. Sure. Whereas in this, you're landing on an alien planet by yourself. You never meet another person, you never talk to another person, and you just destroy the environment, kill the natives. Like, this couldn't be any less Stardew Valley. Grain of Salt asks if the game is out of early access this year. I believe they have plans to... I think that's their plan, but their plans have also changed a bit because early access did much better for them than they expected. But again, like, I think this game is unique among early access games in that if they released it today and said they were done, I'd be kind of sad because I know they're... oh, actually, just a second. There's a problem with our production. Oh no, this is bad. Okay, so our copper production was really slow, and I was trying to figure out why. It's because I screwed up the way the belts work. And kind of what I was talking about earlier with trying to make sure the belt doesn't get biased toward one side or another, it ended up 100% coal. So there was no copper getting put into this belt. It's an easy fix, though. Do that right now. There we go. Right as rain. Okay. Yeah, mixed belts... I don't like mixed belts either. It is a temporary solution because I don't need much copper right now. And I'm probably going to go back and set up a separate belt for coal as soon as I get red science production set up. I should add, I've been playing this game for years. I've probably spent about 500 hours with it. I love it. I do not pretend to be good at it. Which, like, I like optimizing and I like making things more efficient. That said, you don't have to actually be a computer scientist or be good at optimizing in order to enjoy it. It's a kind of game where you can brute force it, you can plink away at it, you can slowly learn, and it's kind of satisfying no matter how intuitive optimization is to you. Okay. So the next thing we're going to work towards is green science. This requires two main components. Oh, and as you can see, with all my research stations up, I am blowing through research. So yeah, the next thing I need to build is green science. There's two components, an inserter and a transport belt. This is the added bonus of I need these things anyway, so the factories are going to produce stuff so I don't have to keep making them, but also they'll help me make the science. So transport belts are simple, gears and iron plates. Inserters are more difficult, and this is where things start to kind of ramp up and you kind of get a feel for what the game is like, is with these electric circuits. So, we're going to do the circuits first because they are the hard ones to manage. They require a ton of copper really fast. So the first component in making a circuit is wiring. And you make wiring out of copper wire. Let's order a couple more factories. Yeah, so right now I'm just trying to find anything that just takes red science and research it regardless of if I need it or not. I'm going to build some armor just in case. Because as you can see, our pollution is getting a little bit bigger. I don't know what's down here. It could be some bugs, so we could get an invasion pretty soon. This is usually when it happens. For me, at least. And let's check up our power. Okay, we need to ramp up our power supply a little bit more. We're getting low. And I'm very low on copper, so now might be a good time to make our copper operation a little bit bigger. So we're going to get some more... Yeah, we're blowing through this. Get some more mining drills. And pretty soon we're going to be able to find some better ways to get rid of these trees instead of chopping them down. My favorite way is with the combat shotgun and just shooting the trees. And then once you get logistics robots, you can actually just do a you can just have them deconstruct them. But that's not as satisfying as just running through and shotgunning trees. Alright, so copper's full speed ahead. And yeah, I should go ahead and fix the belts. I'm being lazy with the conveyor belts. They should not be mixed. Alright. And again, keeping with kind of the theme of this game, it's very chill, but every time you're not producing something, that is an opportunity cost. So I'm just going to go ahead and make a bunch of materials. There's a cost to doing nothing in this game. So you always want to be working on something. I'm going to cancel some of that so I can get some conveyor belts sooner. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to build one belt for copper and one belt for iron, or for coal. That way we can get much longer production lines here. Let's see. But in order to do that, I need to be able to supply power to these inserters. And as you can see, it has a pretty limited range. I can't power one side from the other side of a smeltery. So what I'm going to do is take down these power lines to find out where the gaps are in power. We're actually going to build them along where the second line will be. Let's build one there. And there. And there. And what we're going to do is we're going to use the red-handled long inserters to pull from the second belt and these underground belts to make it so that we can get power to all of the inserters. There we go. And let's just clear this out. I hate having a ton of coal in my inventory. Time to get those belts built elsewhere. Yep. Yes, we can wipe that out. And we're going to do the same thing here. I'm going to leave this first chain of smelteries intact. I'm just going to have I'm just going to build my smelteries probably down where the forest is now. I'm just going to have them rope around there and then back to the main branch. Okay. And we can clear this out. I'll just let that resolve itself. Normally I would build a balancer to make sure that it's using both sides of the belt, but our production is so slow right now that I'm not too worried about it. Alright, and a little bit more coal. Okay, let's bullet damage, just because I know I'm going to get attacked pretty soon. And now that we've finished our combat research, I can build a submachine gun, which is faster shooting than a pistol. There's no concept of accuracy in this game. You just target an enemy and then you shoot it, which is nice. This is not a combat-heavy game. The combat mostly serves as a means to sort of stop you from getting too in your own head and kind of keep you thinking on your toes. I'm going to swipe up a ton of resources real quick. Alright, so I'm going to build a couple of load balancers. Just to make sure that we're getting usage out of all of our copper and iron. There's a bunch of different ways to do these. I'm not going to build a perfect load balancer. Those are not necessary for this amount of production. Basically what you do is you build splitters that join back into themselves. So and again, that's not an efficient way to do it, but it's fine for now. We're going to do the same thing here. There we go. Now everything's nice and neat. And using the belts evenly, more or less. There's a slight bias, apparently, when you do it this way, but it's not something I'm too concerned about. Alright, so next up, let's get the green science. So, these guys are going to produce our wires. And again, we're going to need a lot of them. So we're going to build a lot of inserters. So with certain things, you'll find the inserters can transfer items directly to and from factories faster than they can off conveyor belts. So sometimes you want to build an array like this, where these guys are producing... these guys are going to be producing wires. This guy's going to be producing the circuit, which takes iron and copper wires. So what I'm doing is I'm having 3 factories feeding into 2... 3 factories of wire feeding into 2 factories of circuits. See, it's 11 o'clock Pacific, so just to remind everybody, we're doing this stream for the Transactive Gender Youth Center of Portland, Oregon. It's a fantastic cause. If you're able to donate, that'd be great. If not, the stream's free, so, enjoy. But yeah, it's a wonderful cause. It's a wonderful place. I think Gary said on another stream when he was doing the fall stream that it's the only operator of LGBT-focused suicide prevention hotline in Portland, which is extremely important. So anything you can give will be greatly appreciated. Okay. So we got these fast inserters, because we want to get this stuff in here as fast as possible. Might be overkill. Eventually we're going to upgrade these factories and they'll produce more quickly. So once I start being able to make fast inserters, I kind of stop making anything else. For obvious reasons, they're nice. Yes, what we're going to do is we're going to route iron down here. And then these long inserters are going to put the computer chips over here. Alright, so now we're making computer chips. Eventually we're going to build another set of these and do the same thing we did with our smelteries and kind of have the two conveyor belts opposing each other. Right now we'll just do that. Alright, and so also off of this iron line we're going to start making gears so that we can make our conveyor belts. And our inserters, so both of them use gears. We're low on factories, so let's make some more of those. Yeah, so these guys... And since we're having these gears go to more than one, being used as an input for more than one type of recipe, I'm going to build 2 of them. Alright. I'm out of iron. Yeah, so while we were making a lot of resources earlier, now we're kind of running low because, A, I'm consuming it for the stuff that I'm crafting for my own expansion, but also all these machines are going to be consuming a lot of it. So a lot of this game is really kind of trying to build up equilibrium and keep everything working. Alright, so this will take electronic gears, gear wheels, and iron plates. So we're going to build a splitter here and have it join the gears. And normally multi-bolting is bad, but this is a pretty simple production line. So, well, actually we can make this even simpler. Alright, so this is everything we need to make both components of green science. Unfortunately, our iron production is terrible, and it looks like part of the cause is, oh, electricity. I did not finish upgrading our electric station. Oh! Yeah, that's why. I did not finish setting up the power lines for our iron production. All right. And one thing I love about this game is the crafting is so smooth. You don't have to sit here and, again, like make every intermediary ingredient. You just say what you want, and then there it is. I absolutely love it. Alright, so we're going to get up to 5 turbines for now. So we want, again, the general rule, there are ways to make it more efficient, but the general rule is you want 14 burners, 14 boilers to every 10 steam engines. So we're going to want to up this from 4 to 7. 3, 4... Alright. Okay, so that should be enough. Okay, yeah, that's a little bit better. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to build some more iron production. Oh no, the actual next thing we're going to do is get more stone. Oh, this guy. Forgot about that guy. Yeah, so we had a stone... Oh, there's a little bit being produced over here. This one's a little bit easier. Yeah, we have a stone quarry up here, but it's actually not worth the time to go back there and grab it, because it's much faster to just do this. pretty soon we're going to want to start smelting stone to make things like concrete platforms, but also walls to protect our polluting factories. Okay, so you can see the pollution is getting kind of, not out of control, but it's sprawling. Which means pretty soon we're going to have things trying to attack and destroy our miners and our steam engines. Those are probably our two biggest polluters. So, I'm going to need more iron soon. Okay. So the cool thing is, with how we have this set up now, we can actually make this a two-sided operation. So we're making iron on either side of this, which doesn't use up very much space, which is nice. I always like to use the coal side for my power lines. So let's set that up here. There, that should be enough for 12. Yeah, it's a relaxing game. Hopefully it's as fun to watch as it is to play, which is probably not true for that many games. All right. So we're almost ready to effectively double our iron production. So we're going to use these fast inserters, even though we're kind of resource constrained now, just because it's going to be simpler than trying to set up something from scratch, than try to set up slow inserters just to save resources. It's a lot faster just to do this. Same setup. We're going to build two opposing belts feeding into a master branch. Okay, and my next door neighbor has started playing piano, so apologies if that gets on any goals. Space Lion Bear asks if we have any goals that we want to hit for the stream. It would be fantastic if we could get up to $800. I know it's not very much, but it'd be nice. I gave $50 during ECEC's, during Jeremy Greer's Salt and Sanctuary stream, because it would have felt weird donating during my own stream, making my own numbers get bigger. But every donation absolutely helps. The Transactive Gender Center is a fantastic place. Gary and Cole have been giving to them for a couple of years now through their DuckSpring, which is the one that happens in the fall. So it's a great cause if you can give to it. Yeah, extremely resource constrained right now. Oh. I'm grabbing a bunch of copper by accident. Alright, so these guys should be online as soon as I get these red inserters down. Cool. So one of the easiest ways to monitor whether or not you're producing enough is to see where the backup is on your belts. So like right now you can see I seem to be producing enough resources. But I'm producing enough raw resources, but I'm not producing enough refined resources because there's a backup on the raw, but the refined one is super sparse. So a lot of the game is looking at the load you have on a conveyor belt at any given time and assessing where you need to spend your resources, where you need to improve. Okay, and let's go for a second one. So you can see right here I'm producing enough copper for everything right now, but I don't think all of my copper consuming factories are online because of the shortage of iron. So they're probably not producing gears, which means they're probably not producing enough copper. So hopefully that fixes this. This fixes that. We get another one set up. Ooh, did these ones backwards. There we go. Yes, the red ones will bring in coal, and the blue ones will bring in iron. Actually, don't need to use blue here. It's another great thing about the way this game... So, like, this game has a lot of ease-of-use things that you wouldn't necessarily expect. If I want to replace or upgrade something, I can do it in place. I can just put my... Or even if I want to downgrade, like if I want to pick these blue inserters up, I'm just going to place a yellow over top of them, and they'll just take over right where the blue left off. The blue ones are a lot more expensive, so I kind of want to save those for stuff a little bit further downstream. Yeah, right now our donations are sitting at $710. That's almost halfway to our goal of $1,500 for the weekend. I guess in about an hour we're going to be halfway through through the marathon, so that's a pretty good place to be. Like, honestly, if we could hit $750 by 3 o'clock EST, noon Pacific, that would be fantastic. That would mean we're well on track to hit our goal of $1,500 by the end of the stream. And coming on next up after me is actually going to be Gary, and he's running a round of Quiplash, which is from You Don't Know Jack. Fantastic party game, PC game, PC, console, everything. One of the things that's really innovative about it is that, if you haven't seen it before, they're not just... It's not just like a couch co-op game, it's not an online multiplayer game. You can actually play with your phone as a controller, which is fantastic. And I think Quiplash is one of the ones that you can get... There's a couple games where you can have hundreds and hundreds of players, thousands of players potentially, which is pretty cool. Okay, so you can see, as soon as I set up these 2 extra production lines, this belt just emptied out. So what that tells me is I was only really producing enough raw resources to fill up this one line of smelteries. So... that means there's enough demand for me to expand this a little bit. This is making me a little bit nervous, to be honest, because it's not like I can go and build a whole lot more capacity without expanding pretty far outward, without going all the way up there. So I'm going to run out of space. I'm going to run out of raw resources pretty soon when it comes to iron. So hopefully that won't be a problem this stream. All right. All right, because resources are limited, I'm going to put some mines in places I normally wouldn't, like this spot here that only has 3 iron. And up here. Okay, so now we're running at as much iron as we can produce without making a big base expansion. So hopefully this will be enough for our next tier of research, because red science is where things start getting useful. I'll put it that way. Because like right now we can make some basic guns, we can make some basic turrets, but it's still pretty simple, pretty straightforward, and everything's kind of slow. Alright, so we got some more factories going. The next thing we want to make is conveyor belts. Sure. Keep it busy for a while. I'll put it here. So I'm going to have 2 factories making conveyor belts. And they only need to draw from this side of the belt. Alright. So this is going to supply not only the research, but my own personal conveyor belt needs. And I will need a lot of conveyor belts throughout the game. Because these first conveyor belts are a component in every faster conveyor belt. Grain of Salt asks, am I doing 2 of the games for half the time each? We're getting close to... Actually, let me double check when my stream ends. I want to make sure I don't have the time zones wrong. My plan is basically to run Factorio until people get bored of it, and then switch over to Subnautica. So if people seem to be dropping off, or I think I might wait until I get Red Science going. That'd probably be the better thing to do, because Red Science is the first kind of semi-complex component that you make. So I'm going to make sure that... Okay, I'm going to 1 Pacific. So yeah, I'm going to be hitting the halfway point in about 15 minutes. I'm probably going to spend less time on Subnautica. It's a great game, it's fun, it's interesting, but it's a little bit buggier and it's less mechanically complex. There's not as much to show off. Once you've been chased in the dark by one scary shark monster, you've kind of seen it all. Okay, so now we're making our own conveyor belts here. That is fantastic. A couple more factories. And on this side, we're going to start making inserters. I'm going to make 3 of them because why not? And I think they're also a little bit slower. And kind of like with the conveyor belts, there's something that get used in a lot of other ingredients further down the road. So it's worth producing a lot extra. Yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to merge... I should go ahead and set that up. Oh, right. So I don't actually have the technology to make the inserters yet. I have to research. I have to research a more advanced type of factory. I might already have it. I do not. Yeah, so the inserters require too many ingredients, essentially. So I need... Okay, yeah, so I need to research this next. Oh, that was a surprise. I completely forgot about that. I usually kind of do this first part of the game almost subconsciously, so actually having to sit here and think through what I'm going to be doing is... What's making me overlook things that I normally just take for granted. As you can see, it's pretty sparse now, but after 40 hours or so, this thing will be chock full to the brim, constantly getting assaulted by aliens. Just a good time overall. Okay. So while that's going, let's make some of this a little bit more efficient. I'm going to build a second set of factories for producing computer chips, because those things are so incredibly useful. You need so many of them, especially in the late game. And not only do you need a lot of them, you need them to be churning out at just breakneck speed. Cat just walked by. Alright, to speed up the research so we can get the factories that we need, I built a couple of extra research stations. Okay, and this will allow me to build assembly machines too. Essentially, each tier of factory allows you to put more ingredients in and runs a little bit faster. Alright, so with the 7 factories running, or research facilities running, it should go pretty quick. But, just in case... Well, build a couple extra factories. And like a lot of things in the game, the low-tier factories here are a component in the higher-tier factories. So even when I'm producing these low-tier factories and replacing with the faster ones, I'm not losing resources, because these things will go back into my inventory and then I'll be able to use them to make better factories elsewhere, which is a really cool design. In a lot of ways, this game really respects your time, because it's not asking you to... Almost nothing you do is wasted. Everything you set up, everything you build can be useful later on. The only way to really waste your time is... Occasionally you might design a layout that just doesn't work. For whatever reason, it just isn't... Okay, speaking of isn't working... Oh, yeah, there we go. For whatever reason, if the layout doesn't work, you might need to dig everything up and start over, but after a couple games, it's usually not a problem. Okay, we're really close. Should just be a couple seconds. Alright, there we go. I'm going to go ahead and queue up something that uses green science. This one will expand my hotbar at the bottom to an additional set of items, which is cool. Because we're going to be producing science very quickly. The new science very quickly. Alright. Okay, and now we're building inserters. This is everything we need for the next tier of science, so let's move these belts side to side and get to producing. Yeah, so what I'll do if I want to ramp up science a lot more is, since I've left everything so open and have a couple of gaps, I can just keep building down and around, and I can just expand these lines as far as I need to. So red science, I think, takes a little bit longer to make. It takes about a second longer. So I'm going to give myself a little bit of extra space and make a couple of extra factories producing it. And some extra long inserters. They're always useful. Alright, green science. Whew. So, pretty straightforward, pretty simple for, Sorry, something... Anyway, pretty simple setup here. This thing took me so goddamn long to figure out when I first started playing. It was a nightmare. But everything can seem a little bit daunting at first, because there's a lot to do in this game. There's a huge amount of resources, there's a huge amount of options. The tech tree is monstrous. But ultimately just take things one step at a time and everything works out really well. Okay, so now we have green science getting made and piped up to our research facilities up here. Now would be a good time to ask, if people want, we can keep playing this game. The factories gonna keep getting bigger. Probably in about half an hour or so, we might have a dune buggy, go out raiding some alien bases in an hour after that. But this is more or less Factorio. This is the game. So if people would like me to switch over to the underwater game, that'd be cool. Let me know in the chat. Otherwise, I'm happy to keep expanding the factory. One of the cool things about this game is kind of the zen-like state you can get into, where it's just you, wilderness, you slowly destroying the wilderness. Also, somebody... I would advise against clicking that really weird-looking link that somebody posted in the chat. I'm going to contact somebody to... Yeah. It's... Just a second. Okay, sorry about that. I apologize for being suspicious. Okay, yeah, I did a quick search for the... I had never heard of Kaleva.fi. I did a quick search, made sure it was on the level. Okay. Apologies for that. Okay, so as you can see, it's making green science, but there's not... I could be researching faster. It could be more optimal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a couple more of these and see if my frontline production can handle that. It should be able to. Oh, well, yeah, that's awful, Sebastian. So the church near his hometown just went up in flames. In the chat. That's horrible. Okay, so we got a ton of green science coming out now. It should be more than what we need to produce. I'm just going to grab a couple extra. It'll slow down research for a little bit when I run through and grab all these resources, but it's not a huge blip. Okay, let's check in on our power again. It's terrible. We are not producing anywhere near as much electricity as we need. Okay, so we're going to ramp up to the 10 boiler, or 10 steam reactor, 14 boilers, which means we should probably go ahead and build a couple of gun turrets, which means we'll also need to start producing some ammunition. But first, we're going to have to run the risk. It's basically the more boilers you have, the more power plants you have, the greater the risk that we're going to get attacked by the aliens, which we are not in any condition to fight right now. We don't have any real defenses, and everything's so spread out that by the time I get to somewhere, it's going to have taken a good amount of damage. Let's cancel these real quick. Okay. Alright, so those guys have steam power, or those guys have coal, we have water, and let's finish piping this over to the second train. Okay, now we just doubled our power production, which, cool. It looks like everything's at 100% temperature. We were way under power. Wow. We're already using close to our capacity. So yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a couple of turrets on my way back down. We're going to set up a little factory to produce some ammo clips for the different turrets. It looks like we'll also want to up our iron production again, so we're going to have to expand soon. advanced material processing is a good one. It allows us to build a more efficient furnace that'll smelt a little bit faster. Also, we should be producing steel soon. Yeah, Sebastian said they looked up Subnautica for an early access game, and it looks really good. Yeah, Subnautica is a gorgeous game. It's a hell of a lot of fun. I think I'll play this for a little bit longer, but I do want to switch to it at some point because, like, I feel like since I decided to play Factorio for the stream, it's been popping up everywhere. The Yogscast has been doing a bunch of videos on it this past week. Giant Bomb, Vinny's been getting really into it. The game's kind of been blowing up. Not blowing up the way Stardew Valley did, but I feel like a lot of people have seen and heard of Factorio elsewhere. There was a quick look of Subnautica on Giant Bomb, but not a lot beyond that. It's actually made by the developers of Natural Selection 1 and 2, so at least they've shipped a game before, which is more than what you can say about a lot of the early access developers. And one of the cool things about Subnautica is that they're so transparent in their development. They have, I think it's called a Trello board. It's essentially just a list of tasks that are like stuff people are working on, stuff people have finished for the next version, and kind of what's on the back burner. So you can actually see the state of everything that's going into the next update on their Subnautica website, which is really cool. It definitely seems like the kind of project that's managed with the understanding that a lot of people are very suspicious of early access products at this point. And rightfully so, especially with Subnautica-style survival games. I've never played Commandos, but I know what you're talking about. I saw a lot of screenshots of them in old PC Gamers and things like that. Oh shit, I am well out of resources. I need way more iron than what I'm producing, which is a problem. Okay, so what we're going to do, it's a little bit risky. I'm going to prioritize weapons production real quick. So this is going to be temporary, but right here at the top of the branch, I'm going to set up something to just make me some cheap bullets. Because we're going to need to expand to one of the further afield iron sites. Iron deposits, and that's going to be risky. Okay, so this guy's going to start churning out bullets very slowly. I'm going to plop down a couple of turrets by my coal plant. And so Space Lion Bear says that early access is an interesting beast. Some people are really drawn to games that are constantly being improved. That's honestly one of the things that drew me toward Factorio so much, is that it was a good game when I first bought it a couple of years ago, and it's just been getting better and better. I can check in once every couple of months, and it's just more fun. It plays better, it controls better. Actually, I'm going to switch to turret damage, just in case. Yeah, so these turrets won't be able to handle much. They won't be able to handle very many enemies, but, because they don't have much ammunition, they're not very powerful, and I don't have any walls surrounding them. But they should be good for now. Yeah, like one of the reasons I love Factorio is because some of my favorite games are things like Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup. That's a roguelike that's been in constant development for something like 15 years now. And there's something really great about playing a living game. Playing a game that no matter how much time you put into it, take a year off, come back, it's going to be more interesting, it's going to be more challenging. It's the same game you already bought, or the same game that's free in OpenTTD, or in Dungeon Crawl's case. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. So, there's currently no way to destroy items, and I don't have a logistics system set up, and I want to clear some space out. So my preferred method is to take out an SMG, put everything I don't want in a box, and blow the box up. There we go. We're not quite at the point where we do enough damage to where guns are the fastest way to clear out trees. So we're going to chop down some wood and set up some mines. So RJ Sebastian asks, any thoughts about Legend of Grimrock? I actually had a hell of a lot of fun with that. think it was in early access. I never played it in early access. I actually haven't played it very much after it came out. Put about 15 hours into it and then just sort of fell off. Because I have a little bit of nostalgia for that type of game, but I mostly encountered those series. So Legend of Grimrock is a first-person dungeon crawler. A really fun one. I think it's real-time. I haven't played it in a couple of years. But my only real experience with those types of games back when I was a kid was playing some really impenetrable Might and Magic first-person games for the NES rented from the local video store, so... Oh, yeah, Space Lion Bear asks if I'm a huge Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup fan. Yeah, I absolutely love that game. I was thinking about playing it for the stream, but I figured this would play a little bit better because it has animations and sound effects. And I don't know how good Dungeon Crawl would look compressed over a stream. But if you are interested in watching people play Dungeon Crawl, there's if you just search for Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup, they have this thing called Web Tiles that allows you to watch people's games in real time on a website. There's a couple of guys on Slack that play it from time to time. But yeah, Stone Soup is great. If you like roguelikes, it's one of the older roguelikes, but it has a fantastic interface. It's been in constant development for ages, so it's really well balanced. And it kind of... I'm not going to say video games are sports, but like it kind of reminds me of a sport. An electronic sport, if you will. In that no matter how good you get at it, the game always has something to offer. No matter how many systems you learn or how many systems to master, there's always something you can do to challenge yourself. There's optional items you can get from super hard bosses. There's wings of the dungeon that are really, really difficult to get through. Oh, shit. Okay, so that alarm means I'm being attacked somewhere. You can see on the map the little mushroom cloud means something's being destroyed. Okay, so they're attacking my iron mine. I didn't think they'd come from this direction. So combat in this game is dead simple. I'm holding down the button on my mouse that says auto-attack enemies, and it's automatically attacking the enemies. Alright, so I got two things I need to do now. Oh, okay, that was... So the attack's gone, dealt with. Yeah, so that's combat in this game. Fast, simple, and honestly not that good, not that interesting. But again, like the crafting in the game, if you're doing it yourself, that's probably because you've screwed up. In my case, I screwed up by putting off building defenses for too long. Mostly because you get laser turrets later in the game, they consume a lot of electricity, but you don't have to worry about them, you don't have to reload them. Because of that, I kind of neglect gun turrets. I try to hold off on building them for as long as I can. So it looks like the biters didn't do too much damage. I built some repair tools to repair my mines, but it looks like most of what they destroyed were just a power line and some conveyor belts. So, no real harm done. And now I know where they're going to come from, which is the northwest. Yeah, so you can see my pollution is a lot bigger now. Everything used to be this lighter red. Now there's several layers of dark red. It basically works like a fluid. It just spreads out from wherever it's being produced. And it's huge. Like, we're polluting everywhere now, so... I'm kind of surprised I got away with ignoring defenses for as long as I did. Alright, thanks for stopping in, Space Lion Bear. He is off to run clean around the house. Or he's going to run too clean around the house. Oh. I have a visitor again. He is upside down. Come here, buddy. Psst, psst. Okay, no, he's just going to hang out under the table and bite my socks. So that's... It's not that he's camera shy, it's that he just really likes biting my socks. It's a cat, by the way, not a person. I don't have a man under my desk that bites my socks. I don't make that kind of money. Okay, so as you can see, I didn't really show you guys the tech tree. It's really simple. There are 3 parts of the tech tree. The first part, in yellow, is stuff that you can currently research. Red is stuff that you haven't unlocked the prerequisites for, and green is stuff you've already researched. Mostly you can get by just kind of looking at everything that's available to research and picking whatever sounds neat. What sounds neat? Oil processing. I love oil processing. I'm probably getting ahead of myself because we barely got the resources to deal with what we're already making, but the oil stuff is one of my favorite things in the game. Second only to trains, because who doesn't love trains? Probably a lot of people, but not me. Huh. Zothic says, "Fear not, there's another Jonathan." There's always another John. Jonathan for days, says Spaceline Bear. Incidentally, if any of you haven't heard of The Magic Tavern, it's a really great podcast. I highly recommend it. Yeah, Jonathan for Days reminds me of that because I think The Magic Tavern is the first time I heard the phrase Dick for Days, which was... I like that expression. Yeah, I'm very immature. Alright, so we got our secondary mine set up. I'm going to go ahead and plop down a couple of gun turrets because there's no way in hell I'm going to be able to get back up here before all these things are dead. And I don't really want to spend the resources to have to rebuild all of my mines. That's a terrible waste of time. So this is the kind of thing where later in the game I'd be able to handle all of this with a train, and it would be wonderful and elegant and beautiful. You'd see them stopping in the station, dropping off the resources. But instead we're going to have a big ugly belt right through the woods. So the sacrifices we make. Oh, so I lost my train of thought. Zothic asks, what is it a podcast about, referring to the Magic Tavern? So there's a lot of role-playing podcasts lately that I've been getting into. Some of them are good, some of them aren't. The Magic Tavern is kind of unique in that it's a role-playing podcast with no role-playing game rules. It's essentially an improv podcast done by some... I don't know if they're amateur or professional, but some semi-professional improv actors from Chicago. Apparently Dave Lang and other... Max Timken and some other Chicagoans have played characters and financed and kind of helped with it, but the premise is a sort of chubby white guy in his 30s from Chicago fell through a portal behind a Burger King and into the magical land of Foon, which is the Dungeon Dragon style universe. And instead of doing a useful thing like trying to find his way home to his wife and newborn or going out and adventuring, he just decides to set up in the tavern in the first town that he meets and start a podcast using a Wi-Fi signal that he is apparently still getting from the Burger King. It's a fun podcast. One of the things that's neat is if you don't... So a lot of role-playing game podcasts, they can be fun if you're into video games because it's kind of like watching a Let's Play but for a pen and paper game. But for something like Hello from the Magic Tavern, it's wonderful because, unlike those role-playing game podcasts, there are no mechanics to get in the way of the story that they tell, and it's the epitome of the yes-and philosophy of improv, to where they're all just bouncing things off of each other. The podcast again is called Hello from the Magic Tavern. It stars a wizard, a shapeshifter, and a white guy from Chicago, which is, yeah, good podcast. Yep, no problem, Ninja Cobb. And incidentally, one of the things that got me into Factorio, if you search for Factorio trailer, they have a fantastic... they had a fantastic trailer to sort of announce whenever they felt their game was ready for... Okay, so there's one of my turrets saving me from an invasion. I'm going to restock its ammunition. So Factorio had a trailer that came out a couple years ago that tried to show off the major parts of their game. This was about 2 years ago. And it was cool reading the developer blogs for it, because they're like, yeah, we were real skeptical at first. There was a lot of resources and time to put into the trailer. But then we put it out, and we sold 80,000 copies in like a week after selling 20,000 in a year. So, guess it worked. But it's a really good trailer. It sets out in about 3 minutes what I've been showing you for about 2 hours. Yeah, let me double check the names of the developers of this real quick. I think they have the name of... I think they have a dev studio, but they might just call themselves Factorio, the Factorio devs. They're based out of... I believe it's... the Ukraine. Let's see. Oh. Their studio is called Woob Software Limited. I can honestly say in my years of reading their Friday blog updates, I have never come across that name before. This is the only game they've ever made, so I'm just going to keep calling them the Factorio devs. Okay, so as you can see, everything here is getting completely overloaded and unmanageable. So now's a good time to put in a couple splitters as load balancers. So instead of having a T intersection, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a splitter, give it a much more organic intersection, and then just have it balance the load a little bit further down. Yes. Okay. So that should solve all of our all of our iron shortage problems for the near future, and I think we have enough copper on base to where we don't have to worry about copper production anytime soon. Yeah, you see, it's not even... Yeah, we're not even using anywhere near as much copper as we need, or as much as we're producing. Okay. I'm going to run down the line, stock up on some more iron, and plop down a couple more gun turrets. Yeah, so see, right now everything's kind of stagnant. We're researching, we're producing, we're not really growing. And this is one of the things that the enemies kind of force you to do, is you can't just grow unimpeded. You have to stop and you have to think every once in a while about how you're growing, about what you're doing with your growth, about the kind of resources you're, like what you're prioritizing. It forces you to change priority. Because again, like if there weren't any monsters in the game, I wouldn't be running around, I wouldn't be worrying about this. I would just be going along my merry way. And some people really don't like the combat in this game, and so for them there's actually a mode, because you need the monsters to research the late game tech. But there's a mode called Peaceful Mode that makes it so all the monsters are still there. You can choose how many that spawn. You can choose how quickly they ramp up, because the monsters will actually evolve and get more dangerous over time. You can change all those settings, or you can set it to peaceful so that they won't actually attack you until you go to attack them. That way there's still a little bit of challenge when you try to get that late game researcher resource, but they're never going to invade your base. So for some people that's a better way to play. That's how I played for a while, but at a certain point, like I like having to build little tower defense things all around my base. Okay, so there's a bottleneck somewhere. Right, the bottleneck's iron. Oh, we got a donation. RJ Sebastian donated $10, bringing the total up to $720. Thank you very much, RJ Sebastian. I really appreciate that. Again, the donations here are going to the Transactive Youth Gender Center of Portland, Oregon. Fine organization. Gary and Cole have been donating to them for the past couple years for their their duck feed live they do in fall. They're absolutely great, based out of Portland. It's hard to think and read at the same time. Yeah, I really appreciate it, Sebastian. Okay. What to do next. Okay, so at this point, in order to advance, I'll probably need to expand out the factories, build things up a little bit more, and just keep doing what I've been doing. So I think now might be a good time to move on to the other game. We've been going at this for about 2 hours now. This is usually the point in the game where I'll save, I'll take a couple hours off, or maybe a day or two off, come back to it. I usually don't marathon the early game because kind of planning out the factories, building everything. Like, as soon as I have to start thinking about defense, I always like to take a break and do something else, because this game requires you to do a lot of thinking, a lot of planning, and it can be a little bit overwhelming. So I'm going to save the game because I am enjoying this save and have high hopes for it in the future. Alright. If we have some extra time at the end, after Subnautica, I might hop back in and play my other save, the one that's a little bit further along.